The movie begins. We will be addressed to the arrival of a group of cars to the United States where in droves. A lawyer named Billy also knows that it is a gang of gypsies who are famous for their curses, and can tell fortunes. On the other hand, everyday Billy is always on the lookout for his weight. He also often to check his weight with a bad feeling. And it so happened that right on this day, after being on a diet for 1 full month, instead of losing weight, which now ranges from 136 kilograms to 134 kilograms. Billy's intention to diet was always supported by his wife named Heidi and her daughter, Linda, but Billy was tired of dieting. He complained that during the diet he did not find results. This is very different from his career as a lawyer. This morning, he must defend a corrupt mobster who paid Billy dearly. The defendant had full confidence in Billy because of his reputation as a lawyer who had a 100% winning percentage. And proven from there, the defendant named Richie directly invited Billy to eat. While eating voraciously, Richie confirmed that he was indebted to Billy. After returning from the ship, Billy was misfocused on a group of gypsy people who were holding an event in front of his office. They gather there to welcome a big party that will be held at a farm. But Billy doesn't care about that. Billy doesn't believe in the curse of the gypsies, let alone their ability to tell fortunes. But his superiors tend to be interested not in these things, but in a girl whom the boss considers like a Spanish guitar. It's so interesting that Billy doesn't want to look continuously, and here he focuses on the grandparents who are also across the street. Long story short, Billy was seen eating with work friends while inviting Heidi where to go after dinner. Billy, who was driving, was experiencing unbearable sleepiness due to a glut of food. From there, Heidi began to tease that without them knowing, a grandmother who had seen Billy began to try to cross the street. As a result of not focusing on driving, plus drowsiness, the grandmother also had to be hit by Billy's car. This couple is faced with the fact that one human has just died. The next day, Billy felt an overwhelming sense of anxiety. He is also scheduled to face trial this morning. Linda, as a child, was also worried if her father could not be at home anymore. But Billy and Heidi continue to make sure to take it easy. And when the trial began, a policeman named Duncan also testified that he did not find any influence of alcohol during Billy's driving. All of this is purely due to the negligence of the grandmother who crossed between parked cars. From there, the judge named Carrie immediately concluded that Billy was innocent, as well as worth living life as usual. But who would have thought, since that time the gypsy grandfather began to be unhappy. Billy's face was touched while saying the word skinny, which then in 3 days past Billy experienced a weight loss he had never experienced before. He was confused now. His weight was at 280 ps or around 128 kilograms. Billy is not on a diet, and he continued to eat as usual. This makes Heidi look proud to Billy, what maybe her husband is secretly diligently burning calories. This makes Carrie and Duncan wonder about Billy. I just found out yesterday why Billy is skinny. But it was also at that moment that the strangeness appeared in Carrie's body. His body was injured right after being touched by the gypsy grandfather yesterday. It's a pity that at this moment Billy doesn't really believe that it has an effect. He also focused on his increasingly drastic weight change, to the point that this makes Billy taken to Heidi's mainstay nutrition doctor named Mike. Mike is confused about what happened to Billy, because all the levels in his blood tend to be normal, even better than the doctor himself. But this weight loss helped make Billy confident to remeasure his suit. The tailor's subscription wonders what diet secrets Billy is running. If he could figure it out, then the tailor would also apply it to him. But Billy doesn't know why. Actually, Billy never stopped eating, absolutely no restrictions in consuming something, which lately he likes to eat. That didn't make Linda happy. Linda worries that her father's condition could be a bad omen. But Billy does not want to hear and tends to relax. He continues to eat in the presence of his daughter, and Linda has to hurry away. Heidi explained that their daughter was worried. In order to protect her feelings for a while, Linda would be sent to stay at a friend's house. Billy meets with Dr. Mike. Billy doesn't watch his diet. He keeps hearing reports from the doctor, which Billy is currently focusing on his wife Carrie. Surprisingly, Carrie is never seen again. And out of curiosity, Billy accidentally visits Carrie's house and is greeted by the mother. The mother explained that her husband was visiting the family. But a moment later it was discovered that she was lying. And it turned out that Carrie was in seclusion. Carrie was suffering from a strange disease all over her skin. It all started with the gypsy grandfather who touched Carrie and said one word, lizard. Anxious and panicked, Billy instantly remembers what Grandpa Gypsy did. Billy continues to be blamed by his wife Carrie because Carrie must act unfairly as a judge. In other words, they've flirted so Billy can be free. Heidi heard the story was a little incredulous. She didn't know what her husband meant, but Heidi wouldn't let Billy go unless he came to Dr. Mike. And after the explanation to the wife, Billy went again in a taxi to the house of the police that is Duncan. Duncan, who has not been seen lately, also believes in disbelief. Duncan's strangeness is exactly the same as the time of Carrie's strangeness. Which means there's something going on with this cop. At first, there didn't seem to be a problem. Billy was invited as usual, where he was told to immediately look for the gypsy grandfather. Because Duncan's whole face was blistered, for no apparent reason. He was ashamed of his own appearance. He then asks Billy to kill Gypsy's grandfather. But because Billy kept refusing, Duncan had to resign, which finally heard a loud gunshot from inside the house. The next morning, Billy arrives at the same place to attend Duncan's funeral. Mike, who was at the location, also invited Billy to routinely check his blood again. But the result is Billy no longer believes in medical records. He was also made to focus on strange behavior that has made him suspicious of the existence of Heidi, who always mentions Mike's name. And it looks close for no reason. Then Billy accidentally meets his old relatives who are good at tracking the situation. Where from there he was told that at this time the gypsy grandfather with his son was walking into a field, who are on the outskirts of the city, and it is estimated that they will arrive in a day or two. During that time, the location of their stop was known by Billy. Unfortunately, when he arrived home, Billy was again made emotional. Mike came to his house too many times without Billy there. Heidi also gave an alibi that it was as if she always confided about Billy's condition to Mike. At night, Billy was seen brooding at the night market. Intending to calm down, he instead saw Gypsy's grandfather and his daughter knowing everything. Where the grandfather guessed that Billy's weight would continue to decrease at any time. Unexpectedly, all of that happened exactly. Panicked, Billy immediately ran away. He ran endlessly, which turned out to be the daughter of Gypsy's grandfather continuing to chased while carrying a slingshot. That finally Billy was helped by someone. And guess who that person was? Unexpectedly, it turned out to be Carrie. Carrie's face is now ruined like lizard skin. But here Carrie was already resigned. He wanted to invite Billy to hit another vehicle, making Billy panic. But it turned out that all this was just a dream. Surprisingly, just waking up, Billy gets news from Heidi that Carrie has died as a result of accidentally hitting a bus. Billy accidentally comes to a place that is the stop of the gypsy people. He came alone to beg for his curse to be lifted. Because his weight is very unnatural. But the gypsy grandfather's daughter continued to criticize. Even Billy was also told that the grandfather would not lift the curse. He was very happy to let Billy and his two friends suffer to death. Because for the grandfather, it is a form of payment of an injustice. Injustice over the death of the gypsy grandmother. No kidding, Billy was totally rejected outright. His presence is useless. Billy started to get emotional. He threatened the gypsies that after this they will all get a reward. The retribution that came as a result of the torture of a white man. When they heard this, they all laughed. He laughed at Billy's words, who had just recently pleaded. But now he acted as if the abilities of the gypsies were in Billy's hands. Then the daughter of the grandfather, who could not stand it, immediately punished Billy by making a hole in his palm. Getting more and more emotional, Billy didn't want to talk much anymore, and he immediately left there. The next morning, Billy had to stay at an inn far from home. He was deliberately silent first because it is now Billy cannot drive. His palm condition is very severe. To the extent that a doctor he called could only say, "Be patient with Billy." And at this point Billy is very lucky because it turns out he still has Richie. Richie had promised to return the favor to Billy. Billy is now really tormented with a weight that is only in the figure of 54 kilograms. Richie herself was sad to see the condition of the courtship. As a result, he promised Billy that he would finish all this as soon as possible. The only way that came to Richie's mind was to use his men. He deliberately told one of his men to monitor the conditions at the stop of the gypsies. No matter what happens, he must immediately report the incident. At first, all this seems like an easy task. Billy was sure this plan would work. But when morning came, Billy, who had just received the package, focused on one car. A car that looks the same as the one used by Richie's men. And sure enough, in the car, the poor man had died with his mouth stuffed with chicken heads. Feeling like being challenged, Richie was desperate to prepare himself. He no longer wants to put anyone else in this position. Which is just when night falls, he will act alone, and finally the conditions of the initially peaceful stop of the gypsies will soon have to turn into chaos. It only took 1 minute for Richie to take his position, and he targeted one man first. Then they were all shot in a flash. The cars used to switch positions were shot and even burned. Then the man who was held captive was immediately released by Richie. Here the gypsies are unaware that the man who came is their own man. When approaching, direct fire is directed. Only then did they find out that the man was the lover of his daughter Gypsy's grandfather. While he was grieving, there was a piece of paper attached to the man's body. The whites of the city asked that the curse be lifted at sunrise. Richie also deliberately takes Billy somewhere. The place is very close to the gypsy stop. Richie says that Gypsy grandfather will soon come to see Billy. Billy's just waiting there, while being watched. Billy finally had to leave. Then the gypsy grandfather finally came, bringing a cake. The grandfather explains that all curses will be transferred to the cake. But after successfully transferred, Billy had to give this cake to someone. And then the one who eats will die in a very quick time. In the end, the curse on Billy's body was lifted, where Billy will recover very quickly. Then Billy immediately called his daughter to immediately tell her to stay at his friend's house only. Unbeknownst to Heidi, Billy accidentally comes back in the middle of the night to her house. He had also brought the cake that he planned to give to Heidi. Heidi doesn't know where the cake came from. Feeling happy about Billy's arrival, and as a gift Billy deliberately told his wife to eat a special cake that he got. Here Billy was impatient to wait, and when morning came a news was immediately obtained by Billy, which Heidi had died in a terrifying condition. But the satisfaction did not last long. After Billy realized there were 2 plates lying there. There were even Linda's clothes and bags in sight. Linda did not stay. And he came home at dawn, when Billy was already asleep. From there Billy could only hold back the sadness, due to the fact that since a few hours ago Linda had tasted the cake. Feeling sorry, Billy thought to also eat the cake, to feel the same suffering. But suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Turns out it was Mike. And without thinking, Billy immediately offered Mike to eat the cake. Where can we guess in this ending? Billy has resigned and he will invite Mike to die along with his family.
Yeah.